These are the blunders from down thunder that made Australia great.
On the evening of 24th July 1920, a 29-year-old nun, fearing that she was about to be poisoned, fled from the Presentation Sisters Convent in Wagga Wagga, barefoot and dressed only in her nightgown. She was taken in by some sympathetic Protestants, while a police search for her was underway. A huge controversy between Catholics and Protestants followed.
Welcome to this episode of Blunders Down Under, laughable lessons from the past, in which we talk about dumb decisions from the past which have helped make Australia great. I'm Josh McGrath.
And I'm John Gibbs. And today we're talking about Bridget Partridge, the nun who escaped from a convent in the middle of the night.
So who was Bridget Partridge?
Bridget Mary Partridge was born in 1890 in Ireland, the daughter of an English Protestant father and an Irish Catholic mother. At the age of 18, believing herself called to missionary work, she entered the Order of the Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary at St Bridget's Convent, Kildare. She subsequently sailed to Australia and entered the Presentation Sisters Convent at Wagga Wagga in New South Wales.
So how successful was Bridget as a nun?
Bridget tried teaching for a period of 5 years, but she wasn't very good at it. Her superiors decided that she was unsuited either to the religious life or to teaching, and they tried to persuade her to return to her parents in Ireland. When she refused to go, she was put in charge of the convent's dining room.
What happened earlier the day that Bridget escaped?
On the 24th of July 1920, Bridget went to visit a neighbour to avoid a disagreement in the convent. When she returned to the convent authorities were concerned about her odd behaviour and arranged for a doctor to see her. The doctor said that she was run down and needed rest. Her bed had been prepared for her, and holy water was sprinkled about the room and on her bed.
What happened after that?
A sister gave her something in a cup which she called oil, but it had an unpleasant taste, and Bridget thought it was poison. The sister told her to lie still and not to move, and Bridget thought she was going to die. As soon as the sister left, Bridget swallowed several cupfuls of soapy water and tried to purge the dose as best she could. And she ran away from the convent that night, barefoot and dressed only in a nightgown.
Where did Bridget end up?
Bridget was taken into the house of some Protestants who believed that Bridget was in danger if sent back to the convent. When she was discovered to be missing from the convent, the police were called, and the police began a search assisted by Catholic laymen. The Protestants hid Bridget away, and she was taken to Sydney in the company of the Grand Master of the Loyal Orange Lodge of New South Wales, before being welcomed into the home of William and Laura Tuchel. William was a congregational minister. Bridget wrote to Bishop John Dwyer, the Catholic Bishop of Wagga Wagga, requesting to withdraw from the order.
And what did Protestants and Catholics think of each other?
Just as the Protestants suspected that the Catholics had evil intentions, the Catholics suspected that the Protestants had evil intentions and had taken Bridget against her will. There were strong feelings on the matter in Wagga Wagga. A meeting at the Methodist Church, attended by the members of the No Surrender Loyal Orange Lodge, was told that people who had assisted Bridget in her escape were being persecuted and boycotted. The Protestants were urged not to take this quietly, sitting down.
What did Bridget say publicly about her life as a Catholic nun?
Stories about the escaped nun appeared in the newspapers. To give her side of the story, Bridget signed a statutory declaration and released it to the press. After explaining her story, the declaration said, "I have resigned from the convent life of a nun. I am now resolved never again to submit to the care of those who, professing religion and Christian charity, practice it so sparingly."
What action did the Catholic bishop take?
At the request of Bishop Dwyer, who alleged that she was insane, a warrant for Bridget's arrest was issued. She was found and arrested about 1 year later and appeared before the lunacy court, which declared her to be sane and released her.
Well, how did Bridget and her Protestant supporters respond?
After returning to the home of William and Laura Tuchel, Bridget, with the support of the loyal Orange Lodge, sued Bishop Dwyer for false arrest and damage to her reputation. Hundreds of people queued up each day at the court to listen to the salacious details of the case. The jury ultimately found in favour of the bishop.
Did Bridget's family take any interest in these proceedings?
Bridget's brother, Joseph Partridge, a staunch Catholic, travelled from Hong Kong for the court case and attempted to have Bridget placed under his care and returned to Ireland. Bridget refused to agree to this arrangement.
Well, what happened to Bridget after this court case?
On the 26th of October 1921, Bridget and the Tuchels were walking home from a church event when they were approached by about 20 men. Two of the men grabbed William and held him, while others grabbed Bridget and forced her into a car. Laura was knocked down onto the footpath and Bridget fainted. William saw the number plate of the car and he recognised one of the men as Bridget's brother Joseph. He immediately raced to the police station to report the kidnapping.
And was Bridget rescued from this kidnapping, and if so, how?
Well, the following day, a passerby happened to recognise Bridget as she was being taken into a cafe in Sydney, just opposite the police headquarters. He raced to fetch a policeman, and the policeman went into the cafe to bring Bridget and the man she was with back to police headquarters. Bridget's brother was then summoned, as were Bridget's lawyer and the Tuchels. Bridget was asked who she wanted to go with, her brother or the Tuchels. She chose the Tuchels.
What ended up happening to Bridget later in life?
Bridget continued to live with the Tuchels for another 30 years in various locations in New South Wales. William died in 1954 and Laura and Bridget were admitted to Rydalmere Mental Hospital in Parramatta in 1962. Laura died in 1963 and Bridget died in 1966. She'd never married and had no relatives in Australia. Only one mourner attended her funeral.
Well, what's the moral of this story?
You can force people to do things against their will for a time, but their resentment will grow, and at the first opportunity, they will cast you off.